Ogadai had a fresh idea. I am told, he said to Yeliu Tsai, that in Cathay they stamped money out of a worthless stuff, paper. They used this paper instead of coins. Why cannot we print money in this fashion? The Cathayan smiled. True, it was done once, and they called the minister who did it Lord Scrap Paper. After a while, with this same precious paper, it took 10,000 towels to buy one cake. Do you wish that to happen to us? Paper money, he explained, had one peculiarity. If you printed a little of it, it was indeed precious paper, as the Chinese called it. But if you printed over much, the paper would be worth nothing at all. No more than 100,000 paper notes for as many ounces of silver, he said, should be issued. And, in fact, he held the issue down to 50,000. To this, Ogadai paid little heed. That was Yeliu Tsai's affair, and the Kakan was more interested in the evening's shadow plays and wrestling bouts. Yeliu Tsai had a bitter conflict with the Mongol nobles, who had begged overlordship of captured districts from Ogadai. The Kakan was quite willing to parcel out his new empire in this way, but the wise Cathayan saw the danger in creating a feudal state. Give them gold or woven stuffs, he advised. Anything but land. I have promised, Ogadai objected. Then, give the princes and the grandees a year's tax from these districts, but never let the land and the population go from your hand. He won this point, but he made more enemies. When he passed judgment on a murderer who had killed a priest, Ogadai lost all patience and gave order that Yeliu Tsai was to be imprisoned. After a few days, he began to miss his minister and sent word that the Cathayan was to be released. Yeliu Tsai would not move out of his cell. You named me your minister, he sent word to Ogadai. You arrested me, so I was guilty. Now you give me liberty, and so I'm innocent. But how am I to manage the affairs of the empire? 1,000 words slip out of me in a day, the Kakan replied by messenger, and how can I answer for all of them? The truth is, you are innocent, and you are restored to your rank. In the spring of the year 1235 of the Vulgar era, the year of the goat by Mongol reckoning, Ogadai summoned a second Kuriltai for this time to the housewarming of his Karakorum palace, and his first toast at the first evening's banquet was to Yeliu Tsai. Behold him, he challenged. He stays by my side, yet he brings in stores of gold and precious things from afar. Is any other ruler of men a minister such as he? And he appointed Yeliu Tsai governor general of Cathay. The occasion was one to warm Ogadai's heart. Turakina sat in splendor at his left hand, and hundreds of his kinsmen faced him down the long wine hall. From the gleaming elephants and horses, wine and mare smoke flowed into the silver basins. All the feasters were robed in blue silk, the blue of the sky. When he lifted his cup to drink, a whole orchestra resounded musically. Ogadai had sent for wrestlers from Persia, and Charmagan had shipped him back 30, of which one named Pila caught Ogadai's eyes by his enormous physique. Ogadai wagered that Pila would throw any step-born wrestler and he won his wager when the giant Persian broke the bones of an army champion. Pleased with his find, he gave Pila a girl who was strikingly handsome. Sometime afterward, he asked this girl how she found the Persian as a lover. The Persians, for some reason, having a reputation in that respect among the Mongols. The Perfumed Garden, or some other book that they heard about. May my lord's anger not be upon me, she begged, and confessed, Pila will have nothing to do with me. Rendered curious, Ogadai asked his wrestler why he had not enjoyed the girl. To the court of the Lord of the World I came, Pila explained, and I have not been bettered by any other wrestler. Thy servant wished to keep his strength unspent, so that he would keep the favor of the Lord of the World. Ogadai laughed and said that he would like to see some offspring of that same strength, and that Pila could forget about his reputation. Well, maybe this Persian didn't want to marry some random person of another faith, so he never consummated the thing. Has nothing. It could, very well could have had nothing to do with that. Around the pavilion, the second Kuriltai, new faces appeared. Caravan merchants, aware of the wealth flowing into the mud walls of Karakorum, venturesome lamas wandering out of Tibet to see the face of the nomad emperor, shrewd minds probing for profit in the simplicity of the frontiersman. I'm not going to consider anybody just because of their race or, in this case, or religion or language or something to be such. Increasingly now, Ogadai was subjected to subtle propaganda, but he was protected by the astuteness of Kuriltai and Yelvaj, and his own native shrewdness sometimes turned deception against the deceiver. A stranger prostrated himself before Ogadai's throne seat, crying that he had a portent, a warning out of the spirit world from the Sultan of Genghis Khan, knowing well that the Mongols would obey any imaginable command from the great ancestor. In a dream, he said, the old Mongol had appeared to him, saying, Go thou on my behalf to my sons, and bid them exterminate the Muslimin for an evil race. Ogadai, as usual, pondered this. Did my father speak to you by an interpreter? He asked. The man shook his head. No, the mighty conqueror had appeared alone to him. And do you understand the Mongol speech? Ogadai asked. Nay, as the Khan perceives, I speak only Turkish. Then you lie, because my father spoke only Mongolian, and Ogadai had the man killed. So he's sort of the Haman of the Mongolians, right? Of the Turks or something. Even the aging and irascible Chagatai was content at this Kuriltai. The Yasa was obeyed. All members of the Golden Family were present to hear the wise words spoken. The testament of the great ancestor was being fulfilled. The victories of the last years had obliterated Cathay and pushed the Persian frontier beyond the Caspian. Korea had rebelled, but Korea could be brought to hand now that kin were out of the world. Years of peace in the Mongol homelands had strengthened the army. The new wealth had filled the yurts like well-stocked granaries. The horse herds had grown beyond counting. True, the wild horse did not much approve of Ogadai's new buildings in Karakorum. He preferred the felt tents himself, but so long as Ogadai continued to dwell in the steppes, he might build what he wanted. That was the nomad way to take the treasures out of the cities into the plains. The Mongols knew that they were ready to attack again, and this would be on a greater scale. No one knows who made the decision, but it was Subbutai's old ambition to make the main thrust into the west and destroy the distant, warlike Christian nations in the peninsula beyond the Danube. The Eagle had been making its plans to do so. The left wing, as a matter of course, would resume in its advance into China, this time against the empire of the Sung beyond the Yangtze. Another division would make an exploratory raid into Kashmir in North India, but the main army under Subbutai's direction would go west. To this, the shamans and lamas agreed, perforce. Such was the intention clearly to be seen of the Soldi residing in the Mongol banner, which in turn was actuated by the power of the everlasting blue sky. Tarakina discussed it with her favorite Fatima and approved, for Ogadai, after Tului's death, would remain in Karakorum with her. Instead of the Kakan, her eldest son, Koyuk would go. Koyuk had gained no victories as yet for the Mongols. He was still a pygmy beside such giants as Chutzai and Yelvad are Subbutai, and he needed military glory if he was to govern Mongols. Let Kuyuk command in this new march across the face of the earth. Ogadai wanted to go, but everyone joined in, urging him not to do so. They had almost lost their Kakan and the kin companion, and they were not willing to take such a chance again. Better to let the youngest of his house, the brilliant grandson, Kaidu, ride with Subbutai to learn from him. Chagatai announced that 2 of his house would go, 2 of his sons, so there would be a pack of the young cubs to sharpen their teeth in this venture. He did not realize that this would breed trouble. For the nominal command, Subbutai, being the actual brains of the undertaking, was given not to Kuyuk, but to Batu, because the attack was to start from Batu's lands in the west, and because Batu was eldest of the younger generation. Eliu Chutzai approved. After a hot debate with Ogadai, Ogadai had argued it would be good to make up the army of invasion out of the left-wing veterans and the Chinese levies, while he summoned Batu and the westerners of the Kyrgyz and Turkish elements to carry on the conquest of China. Ogadai rather shrewdly wanted to fight Easterners with Westerners, and vice versa. It will not do, Chutzai protested. The distances are too great. You could not march the Turks down to the China Sea and send the Chinese into the steppes. They do not know. Actually, the acute Kapayan, getting rumbly in the tummy here, to keep the still barbaric Turks, the still frontiersmen Turks, as far as possible from his beloved China. Also, he sent the war faction of the Mongols west, where it would be off the scene for some time. In reality, it was gone for 5 years. Now, the Uyghurs are now a persecuted people in China. Siyurkuktiti, who had more influence than any other woman, acquiesced to the plan. Chutzai had promised to find a better tutor for her son, Kubilai. She had also let the old Turk Yelvad urge upon her that the Mongols should indeed go west along the road of the frontiersmen of the Turks. Let them keep to Central Asia and roll from the saddle, build palaces to their heart's content, but make allies, not enemies, of the Muslimin. To hold the caravan routes, Siyurkuktiti agreed. Was she not a friend of the Muslimin? Had she not dwelt with them in the apple orchards of Al-Malik while her sons were taught? Was not her firstborn Mangu more familiar with the West than Kuyuk, Turakina's eldest? Yelvad could not but agree that Mangu was better fitted to command than the Dur Kuyuk, and Mangu would go with the army of invasion. So Siyur Kuktiti managed to keep a son in the forefront of both the Chinese and Turkish factions because she told Kublai, her next born, that he could not go. He would remain to keep the ancestral hearth and acquire knowledge with the young students. Observant and quiet, Kublai made no protest. Kublai Setchen had become a man. He had his first wife, the Lady Jamui, a small and mild girl of the Khan Kurat, chestnut horse tribe, noted for its beauty, being interbred with the Kathayans. As Sir Kuktiti had known them, Jamui knew the traditions of the nomads. She did not seclude herself or bind her feet with Chinese affectation, but she tinted her cheeks and perfumed her throat to please her husband. No longer did Kublai live in a yurt. His house was built of hewn cedar with tiled floors, like a Chinese yamen, with a screen to keep devils from entering the door. There appeared at this door a man named unknown to Kublai. Now these people were so into feet that this binding of the feet and distorting the feet, like, so the feet aren't as long, A twisted foot's a lot more ugly than a big foot, No longer did Kublai live in a yurt. His house was built of hewn cedar with tiled floors like a Chinese yamen with a screen to keep devils from entering the door. There appeared at this door a man unknown to Kublai. The stranger was an elderly Chinese barefoot. His servants carried writing materials and the rolls of books, little else. His name was Yao Chao, and he had come to Sir Kuktiti's request. At Sir Kuktiti's request to live with the young Mongol. He did not say that Tsai had singled him out to come. Oddly, Yao Chao made no obeisance to the son of Tului. He seemed to exist apart from the house, yet to be a human factor in it. Smiling, he admitted that his work was to write books for impoverished people to read, but others spoke of Yao Chao as Linya, Doctor of Learning. It is necessary for you to learn the principles of government, he told Kublai presently. The Mongol laughed. He had a quick sense of humor. I can manage as it is. Yao Chao did not seem to think so. There were many princes of the blood, he explained, Mongol as well as others, and a few who could rule men with inner certainty. Kublai had little interest in this. What concerned him just then was his new wife, his hunting falcons, the trees he had ordered planted about his yamen. In a curious way, the Linya seemed to approve of that. Yet it might be, he said, that you will rule the world. For a moment, Kublai thought of his grandfather and Yeleu Tsai. But first, said the maker of books, you must learn to govern yourself. And so, Li is in rituals for, because Ren is character and Li ritual. So Linya. Well, if you're a person for learning, definitely you have to have, knowledge to repeat things is part of it.